So it's Saturday morning, and typically this is the prime time to get ready to head out the door and go game hunting. But where are you going? Where are the game hunters going in 2025? The game has really changed. It's the third day of May, so we're getting really close to the summer. We're in the thick of spring, and this is what I would say is probably peak game hunting season in a lot of parts, in a lot of areas of the country. Um, a lot of people are probably tagging up yard sales. They're in their local flyers and things like that. And, game hunting is underway. Now, me personally, in my part of the country, there aren't many options. There's not a lot of places for me locally that I can go and do any game hunting. Yesterday, I was able to basically make a bunch of trades and swaps for pretty much everything that you're seeing here for the PlayStation 1, with the exception of this one game. This was a GameStop mail-in. This finally came in the mail from GameStop. It was a part of an order that I made in April, but everything else that you're seeing here was pretty much swaps and pickups. So, I mean, sorry, swaps and trades. So, for me personally, I'm not in a place of picking anything up right now, for a number of reasons. One, I don't want to just pick up games just to pick them up, unless it's like a really sweet deal or unless it's like a game that I never see. I'm really just not out there hunting. But for those of you who are hunting, where are you going? I have to really kind of drive out of my local area at least, 45 minutes away to be able to even find anything, worth making a trade or a swap for. And, this is the challenge that I think a lot of people talk about when they express their frustration with game hunting, especially retro game hunting. I think if you're game hunting, like if you got up this morning and you said, I'm going to go game hunting, and in the back of your mind, when you say game hunting, you're thinking Switch, PlayStation 4, PlayStation 5, or even like Xbox 360 and PS3, then you're golden. I mean, your opportunities for you to find stuff are going to be everywhere. You're going to be able to find 360 games and PlayStation 3 games and, everything, from that generation forward. You're going to be able to find that stuff real easy. I don't think that there's a scarcity for those games yet. Um, Probably the 360 and the PS3 are becoming more and more scarce. I think as GameStop flushes out their inventory, that's definitely going to take a lot of games out of like the wild, you know, and as people start to transition to the Switch 2, you'll probably see a major flushing out of older systems because what people tend to do, what gamers who don't believe in collecting typically tend to do is when a new console comes out, they just get rid of their old one. So I anticipate a lot of people getting rid of maybe their original Switch, maybe their PlayStation 4. They'll probably go into the crates and just get rid of everything in anticipation of the Switch 2. So between when the Switch 2 drops and probably the rest of this year, you may see a lot of people kind of getting rid of stuff that's in their system. I mean, that's in their collection rather. But I think like right now, while we're in that kind of in between state of waiting for the Switch 2 to drop and actually gain traction, it really does become a thing of, all right, where are you finding anything older than a PS3 or an Xbox 360? And it's really slim. It does take a lot of work. And if I was just strictly retro game hunting, the task would feel a little bit daunting. Now, for some people, they love that challenge. They love the idea of, you know, going out there and finding a rare gem. I think that the joy for them is in the hunt. And that for them, it's like a treasure hunt. It's funny. Somebody put in my comments, somebody responded to a comment that I made, and they said that I sold some of my PlayStation 4 collection too early, and that I let go of, gold And I had to tell them, like, listen, video games are not gold. Like, actual gold is gold. Like, video games are video games, and I get that some of them have value, but there's no gold in video games. But basically the point that they were making was that because of the tariffs and just looking at some of the price increases from like Xbox and how much Nintendo games are costing, um, you know, and just the cost to get the components that are used to build these gaming devices, that it's just going to get more and more expensive. And I guess that's yet to be seen. I try not to go off of speculation. I'm not a fear monger or anything, but I'm not going to let anything like that cause me to say I need to go rush out and buy any particular type of game. I started the year off genuinely wanting to go back to Switch collecting, but it just wasn't exciting to me. It's still like, it wasn't exciting to me as much as retro was. And I think the ease at which I've been able to find retro games and trade for retro games, it's kind of just kept me on the path of retro even up to this point. So is it daunting? Yeah. It does it get tough, especially like during times like this. Yeah. Because like I said, a lot of my damage was done at GameStop. Once GameStop runs dry and no one's trading anything in, now you're kind of just left to, eBay, Mercari. I'm not doing any of that. Or just paying regular prices at mom and pop shops, and I'm not trying to do that either. So the only alternative that I could think of, if you're wanting to kind of get out there and find some stuff, for me will probably be a flea market. I have not done a flea market yet this year. I think I've been to like one. I went to a couple like last year. So I'm thinking about flea markets. The problem for me is that I cannot go to any flea markets in my area either, because the flea markets near me are worse than the retro game stores, and that's sad. Like, I went to, I'm in a tri-state area, and you have people who will set up on the sidewalks, like in Manhattan. You'll have a guy who's in Manhattan with a table, and he'll have a bunch of like used N64s. Like, I remember there was a guy, he had like a used Funtastic N64, a used like NES, a used Genesis, and they all look like they had been through the Civil War, man. These things were like rough shape. And I just out of curiosity, I asked him how much he wanted for the Funtastic 64, and he was like $275. And I'm like, what? Like, this is what we deal with in Manhattan. We deal with that. So like, if you're trying to game hunt in the city, Manhattan, Brooklyn, the Bronx, Long Island, Queens, parts of New Jersey, Connecticut, this is what you deal with. There's no like, no one's giving you anything. Like, yeah, they're not giving you no passes, they're not giving you no discounts, no nothing. So for me to be able to do some damage, I really kind of have to drive a distance. And at that point, it only makes sense if I'm killing multiple birds with one stone. If I'm doing something with my family and we're going to an area and it makes sense, then yeah. But outside of that, it's just it's not a good look. So let me know where you're doing your game hunting today, and what are you hunting for if you indeed are game hunting. A lot of people are trying to buy stuff up because they think that the prices are going to skyrocket based on what's happening with the economy and the government and stuff. But I'm interested to know where your guys' heads are at. Let me know down in the comments, and I'll catch you in the next video. It's the Y2K Collector. Take it easy.